Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin.
I'm Hunter.
I'm Hannah.
And Hannah's joining the podcast today. Let's go.
I'm just here to talk about Neil.
Hey, listen, I could do a 3-hour podcast about that and why he's not the same species of Max Rebo, but that's for a later date.
Let's talk about the cool aliens.
Whoa, man, whoa!
I'm missing Max Rebo.
Read the room. Read the room.
Hunter's gonna leave, and it's just gonna be me and Colin.
There you go. So the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew jumped. They debuted last night. What were your guys' full thoughts? Because I did mine yesterday, but I haven't heard your full thoughts yet of the first 2 episodes.
You want to go first?
You can go. Go for it.
I absolutely loved them. I really like all of the. I like it when Star Wars feels like there's a lot more off screen, but doesn't necessarily say that. And I think Skeleton Crew has already done that better than the majority of other Star Wars series that have come out. Not to say that other Star Wars series did it bad, because there's some awesome stuff in there, but Skeleton Crew did it top tier. Like everything that we saw, all the aliens, all the sets,
good.
Everything was like, oh, that looks like there's a reason it's there other than just to look cool. And they crushed that. And on top of that, it's a really intriguing story to me with the whole barrier thing and like what's up with At-Atten and that has me hooked, as well as it being super, super interesting visually and the characters being fun. I don't know. It checked all the boxes for me. I had a blast watching it. Hannah can attest to last night. I get jazzed about the Easter eggs and stuff. Every time someone would pop up, I'd be like, oh, did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Hannah?
Oh, I also really loved it. I'll probably talk more about the storytelling points more than Hunter in my typical fashion. I feel like they set up a really good way to tell the story. I think from even the first, I don't even remember, we just were rewatching the first episode, the first 10 minutes, you start when you see the sky for the first time and you're like, what's up with that? Like, what is going on? There's already that intro of there's something not right here, very Truman Show, we said last night. And I was like, by the end of the second episode, you learn some of those little more things about the world that they live on.
Yeah.
And it felt very Truman Show-ish, and like the mystery and everything that came up. I love the classic archetypes that they have. You can see that in Goonies, Truman Show, other 80s movies, and I just love all of the character personalities that we have and how they interact. And I was just saying to Hunter, from just one line or one, I guess, interaction between Neil and Wem, you can tell probably later in the show they're gonna have a friend fight. Like Neil's gonna be upset with Wem not being a good friend and only caring about what he wants and not thinking about other people. I just love those little things that in the storytelling, and I think that was really good. And I'm so interested to learn more about what's up with their world and why everyone thinks it's this mystery lost planet.
No, I loved the whole aspect of it being a mystery, and I loved how, for some shows, depending on the show, sometimes the plot can be very predictable, and I loved how that was the last thing on my mind of that people wouldn't know what the planet was. So I was like, ooh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I love that. I loved all the callbacks to like of the 80s pop culture genre and everything was fantastic. And all the Easter eggs, which this is what this episode specifically is about. Because we got stuff from the holiday special, we got stuff from the Ewok movies, we even got something from the attraction all the way from Epcot, like all the way like back in the day, and it's just like, okay, that's awesome. Yeah. So we are gonna dive in, and then we'll talk about the cameos, and we'll talk all about it. So just stand by here while I bring this up, and we'll begin. So we'll start with the title, and I love how it got to yes. And I love how they started with the normal logo opening, and it's got a RX droid. Do we know the? Yeah. I'm sorry, Hunter. You're the expert. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was gonna say I can wait and talk about this guy when we get to the bus scene. But these are the same RX droids, same style that we see in we first saw in Book of Boba Fett, and then the droid bar in Mando season 3, and then again now here, just with a new paint job. But I always get super excited to see these guys on screen. They're really expressive droids. How they're puppeteered to interact with actors and stuff. The way that they can move shows a lot of emotion compared to some other droids that like don't really have as many moving parts. And I don't know. I think they're fun. They're just fun little guys,
Yeah, and going back to the expressive part, I love like how you kind of nailed that comment, because their visor moves, their like head moves, right. So it's so cool how we've jumped from like C-3PO, where like it was just like kind of that standard face, but in a way you could kind of see emotion there. But with these guys, you can actually fully see like But so. We jump to the opening. We don't get any opening crawl, unfortunately, but we get something very similar to what we saw. Huh?
I did like that they did this, though. I like the intro. Feels really authentically Star Wars to me.
Yeah. And there was some confusion at first of where this took place and the timeline, but I thought they were very clear from the beginning that that this is taking place after Mando season 3 and somewhere around the same time as Ahsoka, because of the pirate from season 3 of the Mandalorian vein is in this. But yeah, I agree. I do miss the opening crawl, but I think the opening crawl is only necessary for like the big films.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess the first Easter egg that we get, and the first episode would probably be the very opening of that shot where it pans down. It's very reminiscent of what we get from episode 4, of where it pans down from the crawl, and then we get like the planet next to Tatooine, and then you have like the ship kind of fly by it, except this time it is a wrecked ship. And they're being attacked. How did we feel about the opening scene and all the cool aliens? And I loved how like we haven't seen this kind of Hunter, help me out, of the thing that actually attaches to the ship. Yes, thank you, airlock. So we did see some of it in Rebels, but the first time I really remember seeing it was in the Clone Wars, especially with like the Hondo episodes and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, so these guys are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I got super, super jazzed about all of the alien pirates. And I don't know if you just want to like skip through a couple frame by frame and stuff.
Yeah.
And we can just talk about who we see. But I mean, it's chocked full of aliens from a whole bunch of different Star Wars sources. I mean, there's Snivians, Ishi-Tib, Trandoshan,
Yes.
Gran. And then I want to talk about Brutus specifically because Brutus is super sick. Brutus is the dog werewolf man captain. Also, this Ishi-Tib that just takes the shot in the eye, I was like, oh damn.
He didn't even go down. He just kept fighting.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay. I was like, this guy is like all set for battle. And I know like this show is kind of pointed towards the younger audience, but also at the same time, it's the creators have come out and said this is not a kid's show. And I think they really made that statement clear when you see this guy get shot in the eye and he just keeps going.
With the stuff kids watch these days, would not be surprised if kids watch
this. But so no, it's so good.
Tons of really, really cool aliens. I mean, pretty much all of the species that we see as Jabba's skiff guards show up. You got the Klatooinians, you've got Weequays, everything. And then so Brutus is super, super cool. So Brutus's species, I have it pulled up here because I always forget the name because it's hard to say. Shistavanin, but it was a species that originally appeared in the Cantina in episode 4 in the Rick Baker pickup shots once they did more filming in the States for like B-roll basically in the Cantina to fill it out more. And that character's name was Lack Sivrak, but it's got a super, super cool like special effects background lineage because the mask that was used for Lack in the Cantina was a horror movie werewolf mask that Rick Baker did. And slight modifications for the Cantina scene and stuff, but it's just got really cool lineage there because Rick Baker is an absolute legend when it comes to horror makeup and effects and monster sculpts like this. And it's really, really cool that they're taking that and giving it the attention it deserves with new technology. And it's really exciting. I get super jazzed when I see Brutus. He's awesome. He looks like a pirate, but also a werewolf. And it's
I mean, I also love how his blasters do look like, like actual like pirate pistols, like all the way from and from actual history, and then they're modded, and that goes back to like the history of Star Wars blasters kind of being based off of like real ones, and then they're just completely modified. So I love how they carried on that tradition.
I haven't looked at the blasters very closely. I would be curious to see if there is some of that same like found parts lineage with these, if a lot of the pirate weapons look like they're built off of old stuff, or if it's just, hey, we needed a prop that looked like this, or if they actually started with some specific old firearm from the pirate days.
Absolutely. And then we jump to the shot of this mystery character, but we all know it's Jude Law's character, Jod. So how did we like his helmet? Because it looks similar but different at the same time. Like it just seems like it's something that we've seen before.
Yeah, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like that means
no.
The fact that you feel that way says that it fits the Star Wars design aesthetic,
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm excited to see more of it. So these action figures, so we jump to where they're on the secret planet where no one really knows that it actually exists anymore. But we jump to Wim playing with action figures. Do you guys think these are just your standard action figures, or do you think like they're like, something that we've like seen before, like kind of based off characters from the Old Republic or something?
I was trying to think about that as we watched it.
Yeah.
I was also trying to decide, are those actually lightsabers that they're holding? Or are they other things they're holding that he painted, or they just happen to be sort of red and green? I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to, because obviously there's a very good guy versus bad guy thing going on with what he's holding. And I haven't gone through it as we are now, so I haven't really been able to tell, but it doesn't really look like they're technically lightsabers, even though that's how he's using them.
Yeah.
And you'd think, I don't know, it would seem kind of interesting if they had actual like Jedi action figures in Star Wars, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe not, but
you make a good point that maybe they're sort of homebrew, and he just painted up some toothpicks or something and made lightsabers for his action figures. It definitely seems like him and Neil are playing with lightsaber, like fake imaginary lightsaber stuff.
I love that scene too.
Later, as he's walking down the street, he's like holding a lightsaber.
Well, a flashlight or whatever, and like pretending it's and or I think it's that one sitting right on the table right there.
Like he made it looks like he made like a hilt.
And the stories he reads are obviously actually Jedi, and I think Alex from Star Wars Explained, he translated those. And they're about a High Republic character, right? Druin or something.
Yeah. So I've got it right here. So it was, so from all the pages that we see in order, it goes, the Cave of Shadow was dark and ominous, but Lena was not afraid. She ignited her lightsaber, its blue glow lighting up the darkness, ready for what lay ahead. Suddenly, the Sith appeared before her in dark robes and a red lightsaber. You should not have come here, he hissed, his voice echoing through the cave. So that's a line that's actually said by Neil, like a couple of scenes after this. And then Wim also, thinks that the ship, the Onyx Cinder, could be a Jedi temple, which now with this stuff being translated, there is a story about a Jedi temple that is underground and lifts up. So all of that foreshadowed what they were going to talk about and do in this first episode. And I thought that was really cool because it was in plain sight, but not everyone reads Arabic. But now reading it now, it's just like, oh, okay. So they were kind of telling us of what was going to happen in a way. But I want to jump to of the scene super quick. That container that he's pouring I can't tell what kind of blue green milk that is. But of that container and then the container holding the cereal, those are things you can get off Amazon.
They did really similar stuff for Cyril Karn's cereal in Andor too. Especially the cereal container there looks familiar.
That's at Target.
Now, I think the three of us really, really enjoy all of the different foods that they have at Galaxy's Edge and Disney and stuff. Do you think that cereal is something that like they created specifically for the show, or do you think it's like something that like, because it looks good? And I'm just tired of them making more food like this and Andor and then in like Skeleton Crew and stuff. And then, we don't actually get it in the parks. And it's like, guys, come on.
I didn't pay too much attention when we were watching last night. Like I wasn't dialed in on it, but it kind of looks like Cocoa Puffs mixed with something else.
Didn't they use Fruity Pebbles or something in Andor?
Captain Crunch.
It was like the berry Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch is what
in Andor.
Like,
I don't know. I would be surprised if they used something like that here.
Mm-hmm.
It looks kind of flaky. Like it looks like chocolate flakes or something.
Yeah. So we then get on the bus and now we're going to spend half an hour talking about this. Hunter, go ahead.
I already kind of talked about the main points with this guy, but obviously this is an RX droid, which we first saw on Star Tours, with Captain Rex there. And then I think the next time we actually saw one was in Rebels, where he showed up as the Star Tours pilot. And then DJ Rex in the cantina in Galaxy's Edge. And then we started to see these guys pop back up in the live action shows first.
Yeah.
In Fett in the Sanctuary, and then in the Droid
And Mando
Bar
season 3.
which those two were like the same model of droid, pretty much very close to the same, if not the same paint job. And then this one, which is the same body style, but a different paint job as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then these terrible children sticking the back of his head. Like if a kid did that to my droid at a convention, man, it would not be a good day.
I have seen when we were at Mosh or just on the floor at Dragon Con, like I would see you like laughing, having a good time, and then you would jump to like just serious mode, like because it's just, I mean, I get it because
I guess since we're live here, not everybody probably watches either the costume stuff or the Clone Wars commentary on Patreon. I build droids, and the like piloting them or puppeteering them, it takes a lot of concentration sometimes when you are trying to keep track of a lot of moving people or objects around your droid, because you don't want someone to like bump into the droid and knock them over or scratch it or hurt it in some way or whatever. I think the gum on the back of the head here is hilarious. But again, if I had my RX droid out at a convention and some kid came up and put a lot of chewed gum on the back of his head,
I completely understand where you're coming from. So the other cool thing that I really liked, so we are now jumping to the scene of where they're in class and learning and stuff, and I love that the kids that their desks that they have are pretty much advanced, like etch a sketches.
I thought that was neat. I want to talk about aliens again. Can I talk about aliens again for a second?
No, you don't need permission. Go for it, dude.
So this is a perfect shot too. Like I love that they made a bunch of kids of a bunch of different species too. But one of my favorite things about the aliens in this species is that they are species that we have seen in Star Wars a whole bunch, as well as new species. The Athorians and the Rhodians you get here. Awesome, and that makes it feel super, super Star Wars to me. I still enjoy the sequels a ton, but one of my biggest problems with them is a lot of the stuff that we saw in the original trilogy and the prequels just disappeared, and some of that stuff is full species of sentient beings. Like they just aren't a thing anymore, or at least we didn't see them. And for me, that made it feel kind of disconnected from the rest of the saga in a way. And at least in this series for me, and we see other species that we know and Andor and stuff too. Like it makes it feel much more in line with the design language of the rest of Star Wars for me. And I get really jazzed.
You know, I agree with that, and I think something that this series has already done, which I'm so happy about, is that I feel like the Ithorian species is making a comeback. Like I feel like, because of like correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't see that many like in The Mandalorian or in any of the other shows really. So
we saw Mayor Makshaiz in the Book of Boba Fett. He was an Ithorian, and I feel like we maybe saw a couple elsewhere.
Yeah,
but not very often. And honestly, that could be just from a cost and effects standpoint. It's a mask. It's hard to wear. It's hard to get the animatronics working. I think that a couple scenes forward here, this Ithorian kid is talking, and you see some articulation in the mouth on the side of his head, and like that's a pretty intense animatronic rig to get working and it's not an easy thing to just throw in a series. So massive props to the effects houses that worked on this. I know Legacy did. I don't know if Legacy did all the aliens or if they came from elsewhere, but props to all the effects houses that did stuff here.
Yeah, no, I jumped the gun. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I love how we keep diving into like newer, into like the newer aliens, into the newer alien species as well, because we still don't know the actual name of the species that Neil is. We know it's not the same species as Max Rebo. I don't need any more messages. I don't need any more comments.
Colin, you know I'm on your side. It's okay.
Thank you. But I think there's two candidates for what the species that Neil is. And this is something that my friend Stephanie and I were talking about earlier today. She's thinking that it could be. Have you guys watched the Young Jedi Adventures show? Like at all?
Really?
No.
Okay, so there is a species in there called the Androvan, which does look very similar to Neil, but just slightly off. And I know the other one that I'm thinking it could be a reach, but there is a character called Hooter from Captain EO, and if you look when Neil goes into his parents' house, his dad looks very similar to what Fuzzball. I mean, not Fuzzball, which we'll jump to him, but to what Hooter looks like from Captain EO. If you guys don't know what Captain EO is, it was an attraction at Epcot that was before Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and it starred Michael Jackson and a bunch of Jim Henson, different types of puppets and stuff. But there's always been rumors that it's connected to Star Wars in some way, but it's not.
Lucas.
Yes. So, yeah.
I just went back and rewatched it over this past weekend because we'd seen Fuzzball and I wanted to prep because I'd never actually watched it all the way through until this past weekend. And it feels super cheesy 80s sci-fi in the best way. But I noticed the same thing when Neil's dad comes out. It's the same like head shape or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, his dad definitely looks different than just slightly, like just that slightly different than even Mom and Neil and the rest of the
kid.
Yeah.
The only difference I will say, which could shoot the theory down, is that his dad has tusks, which
it does kind of look like it.
Yeah, which Hooter did not. So, but still, if it ends up like being that, I think that would be super cool, and then in a way kind of tie in and like tie Captain EO to Star Wars even more, which is awesome because George Lucas was part of that. So it's just like, okay, so you're kind of like carrying on the tradition. But I'm trying to find the next big one. Yeah, so I also love that Wim likes to where his head is in the clouds, kind of like Luke Skywalker. And I think that right there is a big Easter egg, is that Wim is a Luke Skywalker type character. He's not very that much like Luke Skywalker in it, because his head is fully in the clouds. And you definitely see that going on because he's not, really thinking about anyone else. Like he's just thinking about himself for most of these 2 episodes. And I think that will change throughout the show, but I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so you can't see it in the shot here, but in the sky, you've got these red dots, and it's kind of hinted at being like a barrier. Well, it's not hinted at. We know it's a barrier, but we don't see it when they leave. So,
like they just fly right through it.
Yeah. So I'm curious what that's about, and I'm curious why they didn't show us any of that either.
I'm really like betting that like Wem's dad. Am I saying his name right? Is it Wem or Wim?
It's
Wim.
It's Wim. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think his dad is gonna kind of start to learn what's actually out there, or like what is actually going on, and we'll get to learn that through him because his son disappeared.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be like in Stranger Things when the adults finally start to believe that the kids aren't crazy.
Yeah. This has so many calls to like the 80s, and even like that first scene where the alien or the pirates are coming onto that ship reminded me of like Zathura and just all these different movies and stereotypes and archetypes that almost I feel are more or less just as much Easter eggs, if you want to call them that. Yes.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Because there are so many callbacks to different like movies from the 80s. I think Goonies is probably the biggest callback for me so far, and then E.T. Yeah. I think they just crushed the vibe. And then Wim gets in trouble, of just being that adventurous kid, and then he misses the test because he missed the space bus, and then he then jumps from him where he should be studying, but he gets caught up in the adventure. Him and Neil go to the forest, which again just feels like E.T. But before that, we get a direct Easter egg from the holiday special, which made me so happy. Because
frame, I have a screenshot of this frame on my phone. It might be the most absurdly ridiculous thing we have ever seen in Star Wars. Like, look at these freakishly cute little guys sitting.
They are adorable.
Here. They are really cute.
They're insanely cute.
Yeah.
Watching whatever this is, which is ridiculous in and of its own, whatever it is, but then it calls back to the holiday special, which is the most ridiculous piece of Star Wars to ever exist, and it's all on screen at one time. I think my brain about melted when this showed up.
I mean, not only was it like hey, look, this is from the holiday special, like the hologram, but they played the same music too that goes along with it. So it's just like, that is amazing. And I love how over the years with the Ewok movies and the holiday special, where it used to be a thing where, some fans look back at it and be like, that is just crazy, I want nothing to do with it, to becoming a fan loved thing now, to where on Life Day, like if you go to Galaxy's Edge, people will be wearing like some type of red robe and they'll take a picture in front of the Millennium Falcon. And there's been Easter eggs throughout the live action shows. Like in the first episode of The Mandalorian, you have one of the characters where he's just like, I'm trying to get home in time for Life Day to go see my family, and they just mentioned the holiday special and stuff like that in some way. And then you have Teak from the Ewok movies, like not the same character but the same species, which we'll definitely talk about. But it's just cool that something that was not loved back in the day is now becoming like a fan favorite thing. So now when we see this, it's just like, oh my gosh, the holiday special. So I love that.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. It's so cool. And then like just look look at how cute he looks.
He's incredible.
I already told Hunter, like, I am about to buy an outfit that looks like the next one Neil wears. I literally like
Hannah's got the right height for Neil, so
do it. And then I will work on Max Rebo. I'm not going on 2 limbs. I'll do the 4-limbed version.
All
but
right.
No.
Let's do it. He's just,
and bathtub scene with Neil.
Yes,
that's such a ginormous bathtub too.
Yeah, I was like, what on earth? That thing is huge.
is having a great time. He's got some self-care after a big test, okay? He knows what he's doing. Neil
Yeah.
he knows what's
Yeah. I as soon as I saw that bathtub, I'm like, that thing is not a bathtub. That thing's like a hot tub. Like, I have questions because of that thing is massive.
Reaction.
Yep. So they both decide to be like, hey, let's go in the forest after this Jedi temple, and then we get more shots with KB and Fern, and they go into this ship. And again, just the entire vibe of just everything felt like, something from the 80s. It just had that classic feeling to it.
Yeah, we were laughing at this scene was what we watched right before we hopped on, and we were just laughing at how they have the like, girls are so stupid, and then boys are so stupid. Yeah, so good.
Yeah. And then we are introduced. He's not activated yet, but we are introduced to the droid SM-33. For fans of classic pirate stories, Captain Hook and everything, we know it stands for SME, which was the right hand man to Captain Hook. And I loved how some people aren't liking the spot on Easter eggs like that. How do you guys feel about them jumping into like these classic pirate stories and doing a Star Wars twist on it? Because some of them are right on the nose, and then some of them like you have to think about. I really don't have a problem with that at all. I think that the SM-33, like the name of the droid, was very clever. But that might just be me. But yeah,
I feel like because we have watched all of that, we know, so it's obvious to us.
Yeah.
Even though this is not a kids show, Star Wars is for kids. And it's
absolutely.
So I think having all of those things in it, whether a kid has seen Peter Pan or other pirate shows or movies or whatever, they might pick up on it, but they don't really know. Like, we know it because we've experienced so much media. I don't really have a problem with it because I don't feel like it's in your face enough. It's not like I'm watching a retelling of Peter Pan or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which I think a other kind of fun thing about Peter Pan is that Jude Law actually played Captain Hook. Mm-hmm. And then one of the directors of a couple of these episodes actually made that Peter Pan movie that was on Disney Plus. And him and Jude Law both worked together. So I love how they jumped to a full out like pirate movie, jump to like a Star Wars pirate movie. But yeah. And then
I was just going to say, it also feels like something, I mean, obviously the kids didn't give the droid the name, but it feels like something that an 80s kid would choose to name that robot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also love the small radios that they carry too, because that's also like straight out of the 80s as well. And it's just classic.
It is straight out of Star Wars too, because they used all kinds of surplus junk like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As props in Star Wars.
Yep. And then we get to the scene of where they're like, don't touch the button. And then he's like Groot. And then, he just, he
Whim. I was like, man, come on.
I think you can tell. I don't know if this is just me because I just love stories and I pay attention a lot to storytelling. But I think you could tell that this kid was going to be the reason something bad happens. And this is also like, I think this whole, once they step in there, it's their first point of no return. They can't go back.
Yes.
This is the first thing that's really getting everything off its feet. And I love that.
I thought it was really, really funny because of he like had to debate with himself and be like, should I press the button? Should I not? And then he's just like, nah, screw it. And he like no hesitation, he just presses it.
You paused it at such the right time in this. If anyone's watching it right now or later, the look on his face is just like kid in a candy store. I must have it. Gotta press it.
Yep.
Again,
and
he's only about himself.
Yep. And then the ship takes off. It was upside down. It flips over. We see the kids struggle. The dad is watching, you know, all this happening from the ground. And then my wife and I just built the Lego set, and it's so detailed because of now looking like back at the show and then looking at the ship. Like they added all of the cannons like in the correct spot and everything on the ship, and how all the doors open on the sides and the cockpit too is really cool. I really like the design of the ship. Do we know if this is an original design or was this like based off of concept art? Because as far as I know, I think it was an original design that they came up for the show.
I don't recognize it. I wouldn't be surprised if parts of or segments of the ship were pulled from some concept art or something.
Yeah.
I don't recognize it. Someone out there can correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah. But the ship like flips over and it takes off. I think my thing is that we didn't see it really go through the barrier. It just looked like it just went through the sky and then left. So I want to see in a future episode of what's going on with that barrier, because it didn't give them any problems whatsoever.
It gave me, I'm sure there's probably an 80s movie I'm forgetting or even missing maybe where this kind of thing is prevalent. But it reminded me of movies like, or books, even like Divergent, where they're like, anything beyond this point is dangerous. And there's so much more that the characters don't know about.
Yeah.
Which is interesting with, you know, all the seemingly other books and stories they might have on the planet.
Yep. Yeah. So that was the first one. I mean, of the first episode, and I love how the second episode like leaves directly off where like the show ends. I mean, the episode ends where they're screaming going to hyperspace, and it begins with them screaming when they're going to hyperspace. And then Hunter, you might have noticed this, but if you look at the cockpit of the controls, there's like the 3 kind of circled screens on there.
Yep.
We only really see that in the Naboo Starfighter.
Yeah, it looks very Nubian, which is cool.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean it has to be Nubian, but it's oh, hey, I recognize that as a Star Wars design aesthetic. So it feels really right. I got super jazzed about that too. And it has on the screen too. It's a lot of circle graphics moving around and stuff.
Yes.
In the Nubian cockpit, and it's similar here too.
Yeah. I thought they did a great job with the design and everything. I would also, could you imagine being the age of these kids and like having that opportunity of like, you know, seeing hyperspace on screen? Because that first time that I went to Galaxy's Edge, like all those years ago, and you got to fly the Millennium Falcon over at Smuggler's Run, even that is just such an incredible feeling. And I couldn't even imagine having that experience as a kid because of, you know, for us as kids, like growing up with Star Wars, it's one thing to see it on screen, but then like of where your imagination is fresh and everything from seeing those movies. And then you go when you actually get to, you know, fly the ship is just crazy. So I can't even imagine of what these actors, you know, were going through when they were able to do this. Cause it's just like, you're just getting paid to like, you know, just be a kid. And I think, you know, that's kind of like the joy of the show is that it's putting that fresh imagination of these kids into like these types of situations. And it's so cool to see. So now we're introduced to SM-33. He's awake. He's moving. He's voiced by Nick Frost. How do we like the droid? How do we, you know, kind of, I mean, do we know what kind of droid he is?
He's new.
Okay, so he's brand new.
Droid. Obviously, the body shape is kind of reminiscent of K2SO, but
yeah,
it doesn't mean he's that style droid. So he's all new. I think he's dope. I love all the piratey aesthetics to him, with the rat living in his eye and the peg leg and the way he hobbles around and the way he talks. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, like, oh man, it's so cool. And then we get to the part of where they talk about their home planet, and SM-33 is like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And then that starts the whole mystery of what's going on with their home planet. Why have they been isolated? So my guess is they probably don't know anything about the Empire. They don't know. Yeah.
And so we're talking about Easter eggs and stuff too. All the planets that Smee lists off there, like Aldani and stuff, all of those were fun Easter eggs too. You didn't know those planets. You're like, oh yeah, those sound like Star Wars planets. And it gets the point across that he doesn't know what Aden is. But if you know it, you're like, oh, those are planets that we've been to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, oh man. And I think that's the beauty that this show is. We'll go into, because, you know, us as fans, for the most part, we know the history of Star Wars, but these kids will be going into this not knowing, you know, most likely about like the fall of the Republic and the Empire and the Rebel Alliance and who Luke Skywalker is and stuff like that. So it's going to be really interesting going forward to see what these kids' reactions are to like everything going around them, because it sounds like they've been so isolated that they just know about the Old Republic stuff and probably the advanced Old Republic stuff, because they probably don't know anything else outside the planet. Because they also said that in the first episode, they said no ship leaves and no ships come in on the planet at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's going to be really interesting to see.
So we're coming up here to when they arrive at the pirate port.
Yes.
And if you thought the rest of this episode or these two episodes were full of Easter eggs, this is just the mother load of Easter eggs.
It's so good. It's so fantastic. Now this was in Legends there was a place called Bonsor Prime, which this place is called help me out, Hunter. It's called what?
I don't remember what the name of this place was on screen.
Okay. It was like Bonsor Port, but there's a place in Legends called Bonsor Prime. If someone wants to correct me, that's fine. I'm probably like not saying the name correctly, but that place in Legends is described as this. It's a giant asteroid that was turned into like a into like a giant spaceport. So I think that's what they are referring to. But I also love it how we're jumping into, you know, and into the world of pirates again, because this reminds me of Tortuga from Pirates of the Caribbean, of just this giant pirate hangout. And there are some ships that do look like we know them. There are some newer ships in there. It's so cool. I loved every second of this.
I was gonna say too, it's reminiscent of if anyone's ever been like on a lake or on a boat on a lake. It looks like how boats line up if you're parked or docking your boat to go up to a restaurant or something out on like a lake or something. How all of them are lined up like in rows like that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Colin's getting at with the Tortuga reference from Pirates of the Caribbean too.
Right.
It's, everybody's just docked out there chilling. And then we get, I don't know, I may have lost my mind about this
You did.
cameo,
You got
more so than anything
excited.
else. When they
Well,
parked
wait.
here.
Yeah, right. So I did want to talk. So of this ship, like right here, it looks very similar to. One second. To Hondo Onaka ship from Smuggler's Run.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it probably went dark. But if there was going to be a show that Hondo Onaka would show up in, it would be a show about pirates. So I'm so hoping that Hondo Onaka ends up making some type of cameo. Even if he's not the main character, that's fine. I don't want him to. I just want to hear hello, my friends. I think everyone wants to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yes. So are you wanted to talk about Teak, right?
Yes. So when I was a kid, I believe it was my dad came home from Best Buy with a DVD of Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor. It was like a double-sided DVD.
So
And
good.
At that point, I had no idea like anything really about what was out there for Star Wars. Just like, oh, that's Star Wars. And I remember watching it and stuff. And then this little dude right here, or this species, Teak. I thought he's the kind of thing in Star Wars that people usually forget about.
Yeah.
So kind of like the holiday special Easter eggs we were talking about. So the fact that they brought Teak back here is insane. And Teak is just like, he runs really fast and he's this little impish looking guy.
He looks real. I mean, of this character is probably not the same from the Ewok movies. I mean, as far as we know, like we don't know that, but this guy looks kind of roughed up. He is missing a lot of hair. He like kind of looks like
either that or the one in the Ewok movies is really obese.
We saw how excited he got with the guys like, I'm rich. I'm gonna go eat.
Yeah.
Yep. So we end up getting into the spaceport, and from all the other Star Wars shows that we've gotten, I think this is the most the probably like of just everything that is happening in these scenes. The world just feels so lived in compared to the other shows. There's so much going on, and I think it's really carrying on the tradition from A New Hope in the cantina scene, because when we jump into that cantina scene and we see all the aliens, all of those characters have backstories, and I guarantee you that's what all of these characters that we see have, that will probably be made later. But it's so cool, and I know we're slowly running out of time, so I really want to jump into all of the alien stuff because I know there's a lot to talk about. Where do you want to start?
I guess just kind of keep scrubbing through. I think the first thing that we probably see, there's the, if you want to call it the red light district of this spaceport. Oh shoot, I forget the species name. I was looking it up beforehand, but the one lady who goes and finds them after that one right there, standing on the left of the doorway. She's the same half Thelan species that we see for the dancers in Jabba's palace, and the one that shows up in Phantom Menace as well. And then like the one on the right looks like she's a similar species to Yarna Elgarna. And just crazy stuff like that. And then later in this too, we see the same type of droid that was in Jabba's torture chamber, giving a tattoo of the Hutt system on the guy's arm. It's just all this fun little stuff like that. And then we get the marketplace here coming up too in just a second, where it's just a whole bunch of Captain EO fuzzballs in cages. Yeah, this scene right here.
It's it's so cool. Like of just of that Easter egg in general. I love it because yes, it's a Disney one, but the fact that George Lucas, played a big part, and that was just awesome. So I love how a non-Star Wars project kind of became a Star Wars project in a way. It's so cool.
I also love that she doesn't know probably what that creature is, and she just boops its nose.
Yeah.
Like me too.
Do we know anything about these probe droids here? Well, I mean, I don't even know if we call them probe droids.
They were playing with him on An-Aden too.
Okay.
I don't know if they were the same assassin droids.
Not the assassin ones, but like this, so a similar one that was. I couldn't really tell what exactly game they were playing, but.
Oh yeah, outside the school, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think these are new too. I could be wrong, but
the food.
Yeah, the food is great.
Where he just but he just spills his guts all over
I want to go to Galaxy's Edge and have some cast member crack open a giant insect onto my food.
Okay. So Hunter, here's the question: would you rather have Star Wars food for the rest of your life, or would you rather have cowfish for the rest of your life?
Oh, don't do this to me. We can talk for another hour.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh man, and then we see a public credit, and this is where like the plot really like thickens because we're diving more into the history, and then we're also very distracted by the food. It's just there's so much going on.
At this point, what everyone calls the Old Republic is Clone Wars era Republic, right?
Yeah. Are
we right to assume that?
We don't know. Because if they're talking like about the Clone Wars and all that stuff, I feel like we would have gotten some mention of clones in some way, but I think they're talking about like the old Republic dating back before Acolyte. And
that doesn't. To me, it feels like they would have forgotten about that,
Well, but no one knows where it is.
Yeah,
I guess
they all think it's like some made up thing at this point.
Yeah,
because everyone's like, "Oh, stop joking around. That's not actually a real place."
Yeah. Okay.
Who the heck is this big green guy? Because
I was about to ask, dude. He looks like a mix of like a dinosaur and a bug, and I'm just like, what is this guy?
I don't know what he is, but he looks sick.
He reminds me of who's the big shark guy from Lilo and Stitch?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What's his name right now? It's on the tip of my tongue. I don't know why. That's who I thought.
Yeah.
Of.
No. I definitely see it too. And again, so many aliens. I would not be. I'm not gonna lie. I would not be surprised if most of the budget to the show went towards like the costume department. Because I just love how many aliens that we're getting, and I think that's been something that the fans have been talking about. Because of if you go to the sequels and then you move forward with like Mandalorian and stuff, we just had a very lack of any alien activity. Like there were not that many aliens in screen where it was just like it felt like classic Star Wars. Walking into this, it's just like you are seeing hammerheads, you are seeing Quarren, you are seeing it's fantastic. So I love the different introduction of these characters. And then we see Vane. He comes in, he's the character from the Mandalorian. He worked under I don't like the captain's name from the Mandalorian season 3. Yes, I just call him Captain Salad because he just looked like a walking salad. So
he looks like seaweed salad. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Right. So I love how Vane is playing like it sounds like he's going to be some type of antagonist in this more than what we thought. Now from the trailers there was this owl creature that looked like we saw him in the marketplace, but we haven't seen him yet at all in the show. So
I'm gonna show up next episode probably.
He was out at Galaxy's Edge too, so I was surprised.
Yeah. So here's my question. Where did Fern get the blaster? Because I don't remember her grabbing it.
I would expect she just ripped it off someone as she was being brushed past them.
Okay, because
I figured it was the woman that was trying to help her, but
Yeah. And then we get the cameo of Space Steve Urkel, which is awesome. I just love that they brought the actor in because it's kind of paying tribute to all of these actors who were upcoming in the 80s and 90s and stuff, and I love how they brought him in because he crushes the role. He is very mysterious, and I love that. And then I also love the way that SM-33 is fighting too, because it's just his arms kind of pop out all right, I'm boxing.
It looked like real steel.
Yeah. Oh man. And then let's see if we can get the shot here quick because I know we're running out of time. Okay.
You can see his helmet right between Brutus and Steve Urkel. But
yes.
So it's not actually Constable Zuvio because he doesn't have the full mask off, but it is part of Constable Zuvio's crew that we were supposed to get in The Force Awakens. This character that they promoted as this thug dude in the Jakku market. And then he just got cut after they already produced action figures and everything. And people were like, where's Constable Zuvio? What happened? Yeah. And then he just became a peg warmer because everyone was like, I don't see this character in the movie. I'm not going to buy this action figure. Yeah. So the shelves just were full of Constable Zuvio. And then they took the costumes presumably out of the archives or storage wherever and have just started throwing these Constable Zuvio looking guys in stuff because they've showed up in Mando season 3 and I think maybe also Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But it's just the rise of the peg warmers. I love it. They're coming back. It makes me happy. Yeah, there's another it's really dark here, but he's got the visor thing down, and below that he's got these big yellow eyes. They're dudes.
So this right here is a giant Easter egg to the Pirates to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I'm gonna have to rewatch it again. Oh no, but you can actually hear whistling very similar to what you hear on the ride. And I also love how they put the key in sight of them as well.
It's the same whistle because I looked at Hunter's did you hear that?
Yeah, I didn't hear it the first wash through, and Hannah caught it. I had to go back afterwards.
I was like, I could not. I feel like I've watched Pirates so many times growing up and been on that ride so much, I could hear it in my sleep.
Yeah. So I liked of the reference. I'm just glad I wasn't spot on the nose of where there was, it was like a loth cat or some type of space dog that was holding the keys and they were just trying to reach for it. I would have been like, okay, we understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
And they just did it once. It didn't keep going.
Right.
No.
So the kids are worried and about everything going on, and then we're introduced to Jude Law's character where we're actually seeing his face on screen for the first time in the show, and then he quotations uses the Force. Do we think he is like the character Haja from Obi-Wan Kenobi, of where he's using the magnets? Or do we think he's actually Force sensitive?
I think he's actually Force sensitive, but he's not a Jedi. He just was Force adept and grew up, but didn't become a Jedi.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have been able to have done that sooner and gotten out too. So it's kind of suspicious. Unless they never left the key there before, but why would they leave it there now?
Well, I think
he's in there.
Also the fact that he didn't think he'd have a way off the
port.
Fair.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to get out. I guess that's fair. I was a little suspicious though.
I've got a feeling that the plot of the show is going to be a big mix of classic pirate stories, and I think one big thing that they'll probably tie into is Treasure Island / Treasure Planet. Because I could see Jude Law's character pretending to be someone that he's not, and that's exactly what happened in those stories. And then he reveals who he is, and all the other pirates are under this like kind of ruse like with him, and then it's revealed towards the end. So do you guys think it's going to be like that, where Jude Law won't be like the actual hero, and he's just playing on these kids' emotions? Because it's like, who are you going to trust more, a Jedi or just like a kind of like stranger pirate character? So
I see him at least at first being self-serving.
Yes.
I think I could see it going either way. Like, he's actually a good person, or he is being kind of tricky. I mean, I could even see it, like Hunter said, being kind of in the middle. Like, maybe he grows fond of the kids, goodness, and then changes. I really think it's so up in the air right now, at least after only having just a few lines from him. But I think either way, so far, I have a lot of faith in the show.
I am so stoked. I'm with you. I can't wait. Honestly, I think we've only seen a small portion of what we've seen from the trailer, so I'm excited to like see of what's coming next and everything. But that's really all the time that we have for. We probably missed a couple of Easter eggs. I know we didn't talk about Tate Fletcher, who played Paz Vizsla. He actually makes a small cameo in the first opening scene of the first episode. Yeah. Nice. You like see his face like very briefly. He is like wearing a scarf, but like you can't miss his like giant like kind of beard that he has and stuff. So like when I watched it, that was the first thing I saw. Yeah. So but yeah, no, I am so excited to see where the show goes. I think it had a strong start. I think it's just the beginning. I have not heard any real big complaints about the show at all, and it's
even overwhelmingly positive, which I love to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's awesome to see all of the positivity, because I feel like we missed that with the last show, and I like how people are giving this a chance, even though it is a different take on Star Wars. It is not your traditional take, and I love that people are really diving into it more than what I expected, because this is not your normal Star Wars, if that makes sense. So yeah, but awesome. Thank you for everyone that has been listening. Thank you for everyone that's watching. Please go check us out on Patreon if you want to hear us talk about Clone Wars and be unfiltered for an hour or so. Go and check out our Patreon on patreon.com. Star Wars Stuff 2187. Go and check it out. Again, thank you so much for everyone listening. Hunter, Hannah, thank you so much for coming on. Anything I'm missing? Is there any words of wisdom that you guys want to leave the audience with? No?
Just enjoy what you enjoy.
Those are words to live by. That's what heroes do. May the Force be with you always.